Hi, guys, and welcome at Chop Chop Ukraine, finally. In this new episode, I want to touch a very important topic. And this topic is very relevant, even 3 years, of more than 3 years since the war began. And the title of this episode actually reflects what this episode will be about. I want to dive deep and explain you why Ukraine cancels everything Russian and why Russian art and culture is a is a tool for Russian imperialistic desires and promoting war, terror, and shaping a Russian mysterious soul in order for the West to like them and to be able to continue what they are doing, what is actually war, genocide, and killing. Yeah, well, this starts quite negatively. I started quite negatively. Well, I can't do it different way. As you can imagine, I am a Ukrainian, and what Russia does in my country is completely horrible, but it is not unusual. So, me as a person, while growing up, I was always a proud Ukrainian. My family is very patriotic. My dad served in army before he was, he retired, and I was very, as I thought, patriotic, and I loved my country. But I grew up in the Russian speaking area of Ukraine, and that, of course, amplified and made me speak Russian till basically 2022 when the war began, and I started dive deep into the Ukrainian culture, in the problems. I realized that I need to switch to Ukrainian in order to preserve my national but also individual identity. So let me explain you what Russian language does and what Russian culture does in order to promote Russian world in basically most of the post-Soviet countries, but also in the West. Let's start with language. Language is not only the tool for the communication, as you might know. Language shapes our identity, and this is really a maybe kind of filter through which we see the world. And people who know more than two languages, or maybe two languages or more, they know that every time when they speak different language, something with you a little bit changes, right? You perceive the world differently. And that's exactly what happens when you speak Russian. You start perceiving the world through Russian narration, yeah. And when your language, your first language is Russian, then you are more likely to watch Russian movies, you are more likely to watch Russian content, you are more likely to consume Russian art and culture, and that all makes Russia, it gives Russia the chance to shape you as a human. Because, as I said, when I was growing up in the Russian speaking area and I didn't speak Ukrainian on everyday basis, Ukrainian was mostly language used at school, I will be sharing with you something which I'm still very ashamed of, is that at some point in my life, I thought that so good that I speak Russian because it's like kind of superior language, it's like sounds cool. And my family in Western Ukraine, to whom I was coming from time to time and visiting, I thought, damn, they spoke Ukrainian because, this is a different topic, but in Western Ukraine, people speak more Ukrainian. I thought that I have some kind of privilege, and that's exactly what Russian propaganda does to you. And as I mentioned, I was very proud Ukrainian, right? I didn't consider myself Russian. And by doing this, Russian Empire, later Soviet Union, was underestimating and demolishing all foundations of minor cultures, promoting Russian as a superior, and that's absolutely crucial for Ukraine now to switch to Ukrainian, speak Ukrainian, and basically do everything possible that Russian language disappears from our everyday life. And yeah, I think it can be difficult for some Ukrainian, and not everybody, unfortunately, understands that. But that's what more and more people are trying to do in Ukraine. And now let's speak a little bit about great Russian art and culture. Like, Russian art, especially if you is, let's say, art is kind of a vision, right? Expression of human, and art influences the culture. So if art is created by people and all people are shaped within this imperialistical mindset, eventually art becomes culture which promotes the moods of nation. And I know that in the West, people might think a lot that it's Putin war, that they want to make it Putin war in order to continue and enjoy Russian art and culture. But this is impossible because, look, I will give you some examples, and many times from Western people I heard how great Dostoevsky is, that it is a masterpiece of, human philosophical things and stuff like this. The whole Russian culture is actually, how to say it, they glorify suffering, as more suffering, better, and also social injustice. Because many cultural, for example, movies or cultural pieces are actually turning around this social injustice. And what perceived in the West as like something mysterious, Russians are always portrayed like these bad guys in all Hollywood movies and stuff. In fact, what is happening is that a typical Russian Vanya somewhere in the village, shaped by this social injustice and suffering, growing up as the individual who thinks and believes that he cannot change anything in the world. That's how Russia can continue their aggression and war. And they are basically, people are not resisting, because that's how they developed, that how culture shaped them. And this is very unfortunate, but this mentality is actually not something new. It didn't start it with Ukraine. This mentality is rooted back to centuries ago. Russia is trying, for example, to eliminate Ukrainian language for 400 years. And the same is happening with other nations. So they are this conquering imperialistic mentality is something which was shaping Russian people for centuries, influenced by this culture. And I know maybe I am too hastic, and this is too much talking and too much information, but this is really important to differentiate that and mention, because so people in the outside world will stop glorifying and actually start canceling Russian culture everywhere, because culture for Russia is some kind of tool. Some of Russian politics and social activists are saying that it's a cultural operations, like a special military operation in Ukraine. So whenever there is cultural performance of Russia, it's so-called cultural invasion and threat for democracies in other countries. Just, for example, take who was this guy who died? That everybody is believing that he was so-called opposition, Navalny. Navalny was the same imperialistic guy, his wife now is saying that actually Crimea is Russian because people there speak Russian, because people were Russified 100 years ago, and the Ukrainian language has been banned for more than 100 maybe times, oppressed. People were actually deported from Crimea. Crimean Tatars was faced a huge genocide. Now his wife is saying that Crimea is basically Russian because people there speak Russian. So that's exactly what is happening, with the language, with the culture. It creates some kind of platform for Russia to be able to normalize their ideas, get people used to their cultural space, and later to be able to actually conquer them at some point. So to summarize this video, I wish more people in Ukraine actually switched to Ukrainian, stopped using Russian, and actually put effort into promoting Ukrainian, because we have an incredible culture, incredible music, and such a long history, which Russia actually also wanted to steal, but that's not in this episode. So I really want them to cherish their own and realize the threats which a Russian language are and culture is applying, and from people in the West to understand the threats of so-called Russian culture as a tool to it's difficult to find the right words, but to create this mysterious Russian soul in order to people like them, when they're creating some things, when they're creating some art, so people think that there is the great art, and art is not in the politics and so on, so they can continue hide behind their art, big superior culture, and staying in the center as when other countries are perceived on the background, including Ukraine. So if you are still with me, this is crazy, by the way, but if you are still with me, and I really want to hear your thoughts. Do you please write me in the comment, if especially foreign people, but also Ukrainians, if you still listen to Russian music, if you still think that, for example, Dostoevsky or other authors are great and you continue admire them, or what are your thoughts? I'm very curious, and maybe the other episodes will more focus on some other dilemmas connected with this. So maybe I see you in another episodes. But thank you for watching, and I do really appreciate if you still with me till the end. This is all, I guess. So I see you in another episodes.